Together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past will all learn with workers' blood, with mistakes on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Manson. I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the September 18th, 2023 edition of the show. It is the 471st one that we have done since the closing of the North Adams Regional Hospital, and is the 11th show that we have done since the announcement of its possible reopening. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is: we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights, and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is our custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23, and Dick has number 1, I have two, I have number 3, and Michael Wilbur has number 4.
If there's time.
Number 1, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number 2, everyone without any discrimination has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself or herself and her or his family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Michael,
Oh, number 4?
you are number 4. Be brave.
Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for protection of his or her interests.
And as is our custom, we do a thank you to Michael Putnam, who is the WMNBLP 107.1 Program Director, for airing the audio portion of our show on Fridays at 6 p.m., and to the fabulous staff here at NBCTC for helping us produce the show. So a thank you to David Fabiano, Joanne Hurlbut, and Nicole A. Brown. Without your assistance, we could do nothing. All right, and Dick, do you want to make a note of the loss that the community had first?
Yes, we've had 2 major losses in this past week. One, Ed Knoll, who for me was a math teacher in middle school for me or in junior high school, and also he was a tremendous coach of mine in athletics, in basketball and football and baseball. He gave to the community. He had a big heart. I was lucky enough to see him a few weeks ago and tell him how much I appreciated him as a teacher and as a coach, and how he was an excellent coach because he was such a good teacher. And he was involved in the community, and he coached kids for years and years. He coached, all the way up. And so I'm very grateful to have known him and had him in my life. The other person is, I just couldn't believe it. I was in the airport, and I got an email from a friend that said that Steve Green passed away, a professor at MCLA, a sociology professor, but one of the most wonderful individuals you'll ever want to meet. And I don't know what life is going to be like without Steve, but he's part of us.
I know he is, and he has been the director for the Al Nelson Friendship Food Pantry for the past several years.
Yeah.
So this is the second time.
Yeah, he was on the board of directors for the Community Coalition, for the United Way. He was a part of the community, and we'll forever be grateful
that he decided to take
make
up
North Adams his home. Him and his wife Sue,
and we're all going to miss seeing him walk around. Walk around North Adams, because his nickname at the campus, because I knew him as also through the campus at MCLA, was the Walker, because he would walk everywhere. Students would make a bet that they could beat him, but in a car to whatever place he said they were going to go, and 9 times out of 10 he said Masmoka, because that's where he would be teaching a class, and they would meet and agree to start at this set time. And the kids would have their car. It wasn't like the car was across campus and they had to go get the car. And then he would every time beat them to wherever the location was.
Yeah. Steve was he was always there for our community, part of the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition. He was always there on Martin Luther King Day celebrations. He was just a wonderful man and very, very humble man, but did great things. So
I know, because I think I saw
we
him at
lost
the downtown celebration. He looked
two great
fabulous
community members.
there.
But right now, we're here to talk about the United Auto Workers Union and the big strike that's taking place. And first, we're going to show a video on the United Auto Workers strike begins. The automakers remain far from a deal. And this is out of an ABC News in the San Francisco area, I believe. It's an ABC Channel 7 affiliate, but it gives a little background of what's going on. So let's watch that video, and then we'll watch a couple more after we comment.
Tonight, members of the United Auto Workers Union are picketing instead of picking up tools. Their contract expired at midnight. No deal was reached with Detroit's big three automakers.
Tonight, for the first time in our history, we will strike all three of the big three at once.
The UAW president is not backing down in the fight with Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, formerly Chrysler. Members want a 40% increase in wages and stronger benefits like cost of living adjustments, more paid time off, pensions, and an increase in retiree pay.
Well, we want to bring back the American dream. We work hard, and it's time for us to get what we deserve. We just want our fair share. Plain and simple.
Profits for the big three are soaring. They brought in $21 billion in the first 6 months of this year alone. ABC's Terry Moran asking Ford's CEO about his own pay increase, something union members underscore as a sign of hypocrisy.
They're asking about CEO pay. You're the CEO. You made $20 million, and they say a 40% increase since the last contract. Why can't they get a 40% increase?
Well, I think, first of all, we are offering an incredible, unprecedented increase. But we can't even get any feedback from the UAW about what they want. All they want is for everyone to make $300,000. That's not sustainable. We'll go bankrupt if we do that.
Ford and GM offering a new 20% wage increase, just half of what the union is looking for. Stellantis offering 17.5%. There are 10 states from Michigan to Texas with union plants for all three automakers that could be impacted depending on how long this strike continues.
Wow, they're asking for the same raise that the CEO got. Gee, and the CEO says we can't afford it.
We can't afford 300,000.
Can't afford the 40% increase for the
I'd like to
workers,
know
but
if
they
that's
can afford it for him.
Because he's one man, and that 40% is what? Let's say if it's 20 million now, you take 40%. That's at least it's at least 8 million again. And I heard on the TV, so I'm not going to say that I'm getting this correct because I'm doing this ad hoc from memory, that his raise in the first month, what he got, would cover a year of what they're asking for every employee in the plant.
If they're in negotiation, maybe the CEO could say, I'm only going to take 8 times what you guys, at the bottom line person is getting. And maybe then they could start negotiating. But I thought it's a very interesting negotiating tactic by the president of the UAW to say, let's get the same raise that the CEO gets.
Right.
I think that the CEO of Henry Ford, he had it right. He said, nobody's going to be able to buy my car, so I'm going to give my workers an increase in pay.
So they can afford to buy
So they can afford to buy his car.
Exactly.
Right.
He didn't have a union back then, but he was...
They did,
Yeah.
they did have
They did, but he used common
that were the builders.
Wasn't it?
1930s. Well, let's watch the second video. We have another video that's from MSNBC. We went from ABC to MSNBC, and our friend Robert Reich is on there, and also the woman that's in charge of the stewardess union, or the Stewards Union in the airlines. So let's hear what they have to say on this one. It's a little bit longer, but
Now by Robert Reich, who served as the United States Labor Secretary in the Clinton administration. He's now a professor of public policy at the University of California, Berkeley, and a senior fellow at the Bloom Center for Developing Economies. Also with me, one of America's foremost labor leaders, Sarah Nelson, who is currently serving her third term as the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. Welcome to both of you. This is an important conversation. I'm glad to have you both here. Sarah, let's just start with you, because you and I have spent some time in the last few months talking about this summer of worker empowerment. And when you look at it on the surface, they're asking for a 40% raise over the course of a contract. But they're saying, our bosses got these raises. The share prices are up. The profitability of these companies are way up. Everybody's in a rush to have the workers take a piece of the action if there's a cut, if there's cost cutting involved, if there's tough times, if there's recessions, if there's cutbacks, if there's COVID. And not in that much of a hurry to give the money to the workers when times are good. And right now, for the auto companies, times are good.
Yeah, the demands are within the range of what the American worker expects and should expect after years of cuts and concessions. And don't forget, when the auto companies were in trouble, it was the workers who bailed them out right alongside the American public. And they took incredible concessions, including this tier system that means that some of the workers, the majority of the workers actually, are making far less pay, do not have the secure retirement, do not have the secure health care in their retirement. And they're fighting to end all of that. They're fighting to turn around the wrong direction that this country has been going in, and the expansive difference between CEOs and the billionaire class and the average worker in the country who makes this country run.
And Bob, that's kind of the point for a lot of people, right? That we're not all suffering. I mean, you talk to the average American and they'll tell you they're having a hard time making ends meet and inflation, but actually the whole country's not suffering. Lots of people are not suffering at all. If you got money to put in an interest-bearing account, you might be okay. If you've got money to invest in the stock market, you've been doing particularly well. And if you are a white-collar executive in this country, you have fared really well. But if you go back over time, Bob, you and I have talked about this many times, over 50 years, and you look at the median worker in this country, they're in many cases earning less than they were 50 years ago.
Yes, that's exactly right, Ali. In fact, it's shocking when you look at 1969. 1969, the average weekly non-supervisory wage, that's the wage for people that were not managers and not supervisors, was higher, adjusted for inflation, than it is today. And so you have an economy that over the last 40 to 45 years, 50 years, has done wonderfully well overall, has exploded. It's about 2.5 times what it was then. But the typical worker, the non-supervisory worker, the worker on the front line, is actually worse off in terms of real purchasing power, in terms of non-inflationary, adjusted for inflation. Well, this is ridiculous. We used to have an economy that worked for everybody. Now we have an economy that works for people at the top, the big investors and the CEOs and the top executives. That's not only unfair, it doesn't even sustain itself. Because where are all of the consumers going to come from if people don't have money in their pockets? Even Henry Ford understood this, at the start of the last century. That's why he gave everybody in Ford a raise, because he understood that where are the people going to come from to buy the new Model T Fords if they don't have money in their pockets? I think that we have got totally off course. We now have a two-tiered structure of the economy, and this is not only unfair, it's bad for the economy overall.
Sarah, tell me what your thoughts are on this.
So Secretary Reich is 100% correct. And the only thing that I would say is that Henry Ford came to that conclusion because Walter Reuther and the fighting auto workers made him come to that conclusion when they built up the union contracts and built up what many praise as the middle class, but the next standard of living and the standard of living that we should expect as American workers. And with the promise of what this country has said to us, that this is a country for everyone to prosper and everyone to equally prosper in this country.
All right, both of you stay there because I want to talk about the new approach that some of these unions are taking in terms of trying to get the concessions they need out of the companies when we come back. Sarah Nelson and Robert Reich, stick with me. We'll continue Morvell Show. We want to pick up our conversation on day 3 of the UAW strike with former Labor Secretary Robert Reich and the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, Sarah Nelson. Secretary, let me start with you. We still have a couple of strikes ongoing for a long time. The Writers Guild, the SAG-AFTRA strike. UPS managed to avoid a strike with the Teamsters, in which the Teamsters got some remarkable concessions. There's still stuff happening around the edges with Amazon and with Starbucks. But we've got union leaders like Shawn Fain, like the Teamsters Union, who are saying, I understand that this could affect the economy to have strikes like this. I understand that it could cost a lot of money to shareholders and stock prices, but we're doing this. This is the moment we have to use to fix these things. I'm sorry if it's going to hurt some other people while we get what's due to us. What do you think?
Well, strikes are not things that anybody enjoys. I mean, it's not as if workers really say, oh, great, terrific, we're now going out on strike. No. In my experience, striking workers really do sacrifice. The funds that a lot of these unions have to help their workers during a strike are not very much. And there are a lot of other ancillary workers who are injured. But the importance of a strike is to develop and enforce countervailing power against these large corporations that have become larger and more powerful over time. What workers have is the ability to strike. They don't have very much else. And at a time when corporate profits have soared, at a time when corporations are providing to their investors huge stock buybacks, at a time when CEO pay is out of control, a strike is all that's left. I mean, that's the way workers, since at least the National Labor Relations Act in the mid-30s, and that's the way workers have to respond. That is the tool they must use.
Sarah, this is something that's similar in your industry. The automakers came out with statements to say, we've made very good offers to the auto workers, and they're far better than the automakers who operate in the United States who are not unionized. They're making the argument that we're paying our unionized members better than those others that are not unionized. This is often an argument that companies use when talking about striking workers.
Well, what's going to happen is that the workers are going to win here. They're going to stick together. I want to be very clear that times have changed. 75% of the American public are with the auto workers striking right now. That's a big change. And that is showing that the narrative that it's the workers who choose to strike rather than the companies who are not bargaining with us fairly are the ones who are putting the economy on its head. No, it's been these executives who have done that. And the workers, with the backing of the American public, are going to turn that around. So we're gonna strike and turn this around, and the workers are doing that everywhere, and they're prepared to do it everywhere. Flight attendants at American Airlines just took a 99.5% strike vote. Alaska Airlines flight attendants, United Airlines flight attendants are not far behind them if necessary to take on these companies to make sure that we get what we deserve. So workers are prepared to do whatever it takes, and it does hurt. But I want to also recognize that UAW is being very smart about this. They are using a strike tactic that is much like one that our union uses called chaos. And they're going to roll out the strikes on the union's time. So workers can also be creative. Robert Reich is correct that this is our one tool that we have to stand up for ourselves. But we can also be smart about it, and we can do this in a way that is going to make sure that we can be out there one day longer and one day stronger than the company. And that's exactly what's happening on the writers' strike and the SAG-AFTRA strike and the Pittsburgh strikers at the Guild there. And they are doing this, and they're going to stay doing this until they win.
Robert, let's talk about there might be one other tool that strikers have today, and that is Joe Biden and this administration, which is very pro-union. Every time I talk to the administration about these things, they tend to not want to look like they're putting their thumb on the scale. But if this strike goes into next week, we do know that Gene Sperling, whom you know, and the new labor secretary might get themselves involved. What does that look like?
Well, it's a very, very good question. I hope they get involved in the sense that they make it very, very clear to the workers, to the companies, and to the public that the administration is on the side of working people. There should be no question about it. I mean, this is, we've in all of these industries, this is not only the auto industry, you see over the last 4 years that profits have soared, that stock buybacks have soared, but actually worker pay has gone almost nowhere. And if you look at the future with artificial artificial intelligence, workers need some protection. They need some security. And when you talk about workers, we're talking about most people in this country. We're not talking about a small group of unionized workers. Those unionized workers are, in a sense, representing all workers because all workers need a raise. So I hope the Biden administration comes out very squarely and unambiguously for the workers.
All right, thanks to both of you. We're going to watch this all very closely together. Thank you. Robert Reich is the former labor secretary during the Clinton administration. Sarah Nelson is the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA.
Mike, it's your turn.
What?
Comment?
The two-tier system. What do you
Two-tier
think of
system.
That's one thing that they tried to push on the postal workers they wanted a two-tier system. We fought to have step raises, but everybody, once you start, you can get to the top. And I think what happened when they're fighting right now is there's a two-tier wage system, and it's directly opposed to Article number 2. Everyone has, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Oh, yeah. That would be nice, yes.
Yeah, so that's what they're fighting, is a two-tier system.
Right. And I think what he meant was that the economy for the white upper class and then the workers, and this side is forgetting, these are the buyers. So if they don't have the money to buy,
right,
where does your profit come from?
No, but I think in their two-tier system, what they're talking about is that in their contract, what they said was the people they hired after that didn't have the same wages as the people that were already working there, don't have the retirement benefits, vacation pay,
Massachusetts
all those things. It's a two-tier system. What they're saying is we don't want two tiers, we want one tier.
For everybody, because I know the Commonwealth of Mass did that to its state employees. If you were hired by a certain date, your pension was the one that you had when everybody came in. But if you got hired after this date, instead of being able to earn 80% of your salary, you can earn 60% of your salary.
Yeah.
And
it drives a wedge between the union.
Yeah, intentions to drive a wedge.
It's always been that way with companies and workers. What they do is they find one side over here, well, if we do this for them and make it really sweet, but then we cut them out, they're in a bind. Well, I got to give up my positive raise to help the people behind me get a pay raise. And a lot of workers don't go that route.
No, they divide and conquer. That's why he's saying
That's what they're doing.
we
That's
want
why they're doing it.
one tier. We want one tier for everyone. They talked about what President Biden.
Even in my work as a respiratory therapist, there would be somebody that was registered and then somebody that was a technician, and they were both doing the same work. But the one that was registered got more money than the technician did. So basically, I kind of find that interesting too.
Yeah. They would encourage you to get that certification.
Right.
Well, they were talking about what does President Biden, let's give 3 minutes to President Biden on his comments 3 days ago on this strike. Let's hear what he had.
Hey, folks. I'll be very brief. I want to talk very briefly about the auto strike. I'd like to say a few words about the contract negotiations between the United Auto Workers and the big three auto companies. I've been in touch with both parties since this began over the last few weeks and over the past decade. Auto companies have seen record profits, including the last few years, because of the extraordinary skill and sacrifices of the UAW workers. But those record profits have not been shared fairly, in my view, with those workers. Just as the Treasury Department has released a report pointing out that the most comprehensive report ever dealing with how unions are good for both union workers and non-union workers and the overall economy. Unions raise workers' wages, they said, incomes, increase home ownership, increase retirement savings, increase access to critical benefits like sick leave and child care, and reduce inequality, all of which strengthen our economy for all workers. That's unions raise standards across the workplaces and entire industries, pushing up wages and strengthening benefits for everyone. That's why strong unions are critical to a growing economy and growing it from the middle out, the bottom up, not the top down. That's especially true as we transition to a clean energy future, which we're in the process of doing. I believe that transition should be fair and a win-win, for auto workers and auto companies. But I also believe the contract agreement must lead to a vibrant, made-in-America future that promotes good, strong, middle-class jobs that workers can raise a family on. Where the UAW remains at the heart of our auto economy, and where the big three companies continue to lead in innovation, excellence, quality, and leadership. Last night, after negotiations broke down, the UAW announced a targeted strike at a few big three auto plants. Let's be clear. No one wants a strike. Say it again. No one wants a strike. But I respect workers' right to use their options under the collective bargaining system. And I understand the workers' frustration. Over generations, auto workers sacrificed so much to keep the industry alive and strong, especially through the economic crisis and the pandemic. Workers deserve a fair share of the benefits they helped create for an enterprise. I do appreciate that the parties have been working around the clock. And when I first called them at the very first day of the negotiations, I said, please stay at the table as long as you can to try to work this out. And they've been around the clock, and the companies have made some significant offers. But I believe they should go further to ensure record corporate profits mean record contracts for the UAW. Let me say that again. Record corporate profits, which they have, should be shared by record contracts for the UAW. And just as we're building an economy of the future, we need labor agreements for the future. It's my hope that the parties can return to the negotiation table to forge a win-win agreement. To continue our active engagement, I'm dispatching 2 members of my team to Detroit, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Hsu and White House Senior Advisor Gene Sperling, both of them have been involved up to now, to offer their full support for the parties in reaching a contract. The bottom line is that auto workers help create America's middle class. They deserve a contract that sustains them in the middle class. So thank you very much. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Well, that's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah. It is, and yeah, they are back at the negotiating table as I understand it. I think they started today again.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing a president ever come out that strongly for unions.
No.
No.
Well, I think Biden, when he first ran, made it clear that he was for the worker. So, I mean, he's out there, and that's what you want. I mean, the best man for the job for us won. And I hope that he can get both sides together, because nobody's going to win during the strike. Nobody.
No,
Never
no
get
one
the money
will.
back either
Yeah.
side. And so it's about time that they both way come and say, okay, settle for this instead of that, and we all can go home happy.
Well, we're trying to revitalize the art of compromise, which seems to have gotten lost along the way.
They were
over
able
the
to
last
do it
decade.
with UPS and the Teamsters. Let's hope we can replicate it again here with the
the
auto
auto
workers
workers.
and
the Hollywood striker, all
writers.
the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild and all the other ones that are going to be coming, because everybody wants a fair deal. They honestly do. There's no other way to put it. You know, if you want your economy to thrive, you got to enable the lower tier to live, to breathe, so that they want to spend their money. They can't be working all the time trying to survive. They just
one
won't spend
paycheck
it.
to the next.
Right.
It seems like, that's what they live, one paycheck to the next.
Okay, we're running out of time, so we'll see you next week.
We just got here.
Power to
To the people.
Power to the people.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. The strikes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. War's always been the boss's way.